Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to see implementing and administering the ADGA sites and replication. Let's see the overview of the module. So here we'll cover the ADGS replication and configuring ADGS sites and configuring and monitoring ADGS replication. So in the overview, we'll cover some of the following topics. What are ADDS partitions and the characteristics of ADDS replication, how the ADDS replication works within a site, and resolving a replication conflict, and how the replication topology is generated, and finally about the SYSVOL replication. So let's see what are the partitions available in the Active Directory domain services. So there will be 4 partitions, which will be configuration and schema partition, domain partition, and the application. So the configuration contains forest-wide information about the Active Directory structure, and the schema is the main partition that's contains the forest-wide definitions and rules for the creating and manipulating all the objects in the AD, all the objects and the attributes. So the domain partition that will contain the information about the domain specific. So when we create the domain, so it will contain all the information about the specific domain. And the application partition that contains the information about the applications. So let's see the characteristics of ADGS replication. So there will be a multi-master replication that ensure about the accuracy and consistency and the performance that keep the replication traffic into a reasonable level. And the main key characteristics of the ADGS replication that includes the multi-master replication, and it pulls the replication and store and forward the replication to another AD or the domain controller in the network, and the partitions and automatic generation of an efficient robust replication topology, and attribute level and multi-value replication also it does, and the distinct control of the inter-site replication. So let's see how this ADDS replication works within a site. So the intra-site replication issues, as shows in the diagram. Let's assume that in site we have 3 domain controllers, DC1, DC2, and DC3. So within this site, we'll see how the replication happening between the domain controllers. So the connection object for inbound replication to a domain controller, and there will be a KCC, which is knowledge consistency checker. So that role will automatically create the topology that is efficient and robust, which will be two-way between the domain controllers. And then will notifications in which the domain controller that tells to the downstream partner, which is the another domain controller, when there is a change available. So when there is a change available, or if someone make a change in one of the domain controller, then that domain controller will say to the another domain controller that there is a change available, and then it will do the replication. And polling, in which the domain controller checks with its upstream partner for changes. So let's see the resolving replication conflict. So in the multi-master replication model, that means when multiple domain controllers involving for the replication, we'll see if there is any conflict comes up. So the same attribute is changed on two domain controllers simultaneously. So if there are two persons sitting on the company and everyone logging into a different domain controller and making any attribute changes, then there will be a conflict arise. And if two objects within the same relative distinguished name also added to the same domain controller, then two domain controller will arise the conflict issue. So to avoid this, to resolve the replication conflict, ADDS uses the version number and the timestamp whenever you make any changes to the attribute. So this is a sample diagram how the replication topology generated. So let's consider domain A topology. So domain A is the global catalog server, which will be the first domain controller promoted in the forest or the site. And then when you make another domain controller called as A2, then the replication will happen between A1 and A2. And when you make another domain controller, then consider as a A3, then the replication will happen from A1 to A3. So that's how this will, do the replication across multiple domain controllers. And next we'll see the SYSVOL replication. So basically the SYSVOL contains, the logon script, group policy templates, and the group policy object with their content. Also the SYSVOL replication, can take place by using FRS and DFS. So FRS basically primarily it was used in server 2003 and the older domain structure, and DFS distributed file system replication, which is used in the 2008 and the newer domain systems. So to migrate the SYSVOL replication from the older servers, which is 2003 and older, to the newer one, we can use the dfrs mig.exe tool to perform the migration, but we need to make sure the domain functional level must be at least Windows Server 2008. So to check the domain functional level, you can just log into the Windows Server 2016, and you can open the Active Directory, Domains and Trust. So here, if you select the domain and right click, so you will see an option, raise the domain functional level. So this has to be at least 2008 if you are using the older version of operating system. Since I'm running Windows Server 2016, this is by default set to 2016. So the current domain functional level is set to 2012 R2, and we can maximum increase it to 2016. If I click raise, then it will be changed to 2016 from 2012 R2. At the same time, if you wanted to raise the forest functional level, we can also do it from here. So right now it is the same domain and forest functional level. Also, if you wanted to look at the SYSVOL that we just discussed, you can just open the domain controller. For example, this is DC1. So you will see the folder called SYSVOL. So under which you have the domain, and you can see the policies and script. So these are all the policies and script that we use in the domain controller. Okay, so that's it in this video, and I'll see you in the next. Thank you.